Alright, so we all know Westeros is full of wars, betrayals, and dragons, but none of that happens without money. Armies don't fight for free, castles don't build themselves, and even the High Septon's crown costs a few coins. So today, we are breaking down the wealth of the major houses of. We'll look at the trade goods each region produced, and then we'll even figure out what a gold dragon would be worth in US dollars. So, to understand the wealth Westeros has, we must also ask, how did lords and kings gather their wealth in our own world? In Western Europe, a typical peasant family might produce 6 to 10 pounds sterling worth of goods per year in the 13th century, the equivalent of 8,000 to 12,000 US dollars today. Of this, 30 to 50% was claimed in rents, dues, and tithes. Rents were often a quarter of the harvest and went to the lord. Tithes were roughly 10% and were paid to the church. Additionally, 5 to 10% went towards pay for levies during war, ransoms, or royal ceremonies. Thus, a peasant might keep barely half his production, just enough to survive. In Westeros, the same holds true. A farmer from the Reach sends grain to his lord, who in turn owes money and levies to Highgarden, who owes fealty and taxes to the Iron Throne. The faith of the Seven, like the church in Europe, claims its tithe. So when the Iron Throne has 6 million dragons yearly, remember, those dragons are not conjured from the air. They are harvested 1 bushel, 1 toll, 1 tithe at a time from the labor of the small folk. So, what is a gold dragon worth? Now let us establish the baseline value of a single gold dragon. In King's Landing, an instay might cost a few coppers, a sword for few silver stags, and a warhorse 20 dragons. Tyrion once bought a ship from the city of Braavos for 30,000 dragons. So, for a baseline, we will suppose a knight's yearly wage is about 12 to 15 dragons. If a knight's salary is equal to about 40,000 US dollars today, then 1 gold dragon equals about 3,000 to 3,500 US dollars. So, we will use that as our baseline. By this measure, a warhorse at 20 dragons is about 60,000 to 70,000. Tyrion's ship at 30,000 dragons is nearly 100 million. The Iron Throne's revenue of 6 million dragons equals 18 to 20 billion US dollars. As Littlefinger once said, "We owe over 6 million dragons. We can borrow no more." Sounds like a line straight out of modern politics. So, before we get to the noble houses, let's start with the two other large institutions in Westeros, starting with the Faith of the Seven. The Faith is the largest religious institution in Westeros, claiming nearly 3/4 of the realm's population as followers. Its wealth comes not from mines or harvests, but from the purses of the faithful, as every sept in the realm collects 1/10 of the harvests, coin or goods, from the small folk. Even though the small folk are poor in coin but rich in devotion. From each comes the faith's tithe, and from millions comes a fortune. Noble houses also endow septs with donations of land and coin, often for the salvation of their souls. Tywin Lannister himself rebuilt septs in the Westerlands at vast expense. The faith also owns farmland, inns, and estates outright, producing steady yearly revenue. At its height, the faith may have commanded 1 to 2 million gold dragons annually. If 1 gold dragon equals roughly $3,000 to $3,500, then the faith's income was about $3 to $7 billion per year. That would make the Faith of the Seven the single wealthiest institution in Westeros, richer even than many great houses, and comparable to the wealth of the medieval Catholic Church in Europe. Enough monetary funds to build septs and maintain armies of warriors' sons and poor fellows when called upon. Then there is the Citadel, founded as a scholarly order, yet it too commands wealth. As noble houses donate land and coin to the Citadel in exchange for learned services, lords pay indirectly to support the maesters assigned to their keeps. The Citadel manages the ravens for messaging, copying books and other important documents, and alchemical knowledge. Although the Citadel's wealth is smaller than Faith's, it is still immense. Revenues are estimated to be around 200,000 to 300,000 gold dragons per year, equal to $600 million to $1 billion annually. That is comparable to a modern Ivy League university endowment, sustaining one of the world's greatest libraries, funding research, and keeping the Raven network flying across Westeros. Now let's talk about the noble houses. We start with the Lions of the West. House Lannister. For centuries, the Lannisters were the undisputed wealthiest family in Westeros. At their peak, they were pulling in 2 to 3 million gold dragons annually from their mines, taxes, and trade. To put that into perspective, the Iron Throne itself collected around 6 million dragons per year. That means one house was almost as rich as the crown. Trade goods and natural resources include gold and silver. The Lannisters also export gemstones and high-quality arms and armor from Lannisport, one of the busiest ports in the realm. But by the time of the War of the Five Kings, Tyrion admitted, the gold mines of Casterly Rock have not yielded a golden speck in years. The family's fortune was dwindling, though their reputation still made them powerful, so 2 to 3 million dragons would be worth $6 to $9 billion a year in our world. That's billionaire territory, and explains why Tywin could fund wars almost single-handedly. If the Lannisters are rich in gold, the Tyrells are rich in food. The Reach produced a third of Westeros's grain and wine, plus fruit, olive oil, and more. Trade goods and natural resources include grain and wine are the big exports. Tyrell wine was famous across Westeros and even in Essos. Old Town, the greatest port in the south, funneled tolls and tariffs into their coffers. This means that the income can range from 1.5 to 2 million dragons annually in steady, renewable income. Unlike gold mines, harvests come back every year, so that income range in US dollars is around $4.5 to $7 billion a year. Next is House Martell. Dorne looks poor compared to the fertile South and Golden West, but their wealth came from trade. Trade goods and natural resources include Dornish wines, citrus fruits, olives, and spices. Much of these goods are traded across the narrow sea from Plankytown and Sunspear. From this trade income, the Martells probably earned 400,000 to 600,000 dragons annually. Modest compared to other great houses, but steady. So this wealth equates to roughly 1.2 to 2 billion annually. The Starks of Winterfell ruled almost a third of the land in Westeros, but it is poor third. Trade goods and natural resources include timber, furs, wool, fish, and amber made up the North's exports. White Harbor, under House Manderley, was their only real port for trade. That gives the Starks maybe 300,000 to 500,000 dragons annually. Not much compared to the South. That's about 900 million to 1.5 billion per year. Their real wealth was loyalty, not dragons. The Vale of Arryn is fertile, with grain, wool, and even silver mines. Trade goods and natural resources include wool, fruit, grain, and silver shipped out through Gulltown, the Vale's main port. So potentially the income could be roughly 600,000 to 800,000 dragons per year, around 1.8 to 2.5 billion modern dollars. Not as flashy as the lions or roses, but comfortably wealthy. The Riverlands are fertile and central, but fragmented. Trade goods and natural resources include grain, fish, and timber, plus tolls from the rivers and crossings at River Run, which means that Tully's brought in about 400,000 to 800,000 dragons annually, roughly 1.2 to 2.4 billion today. Respectable, but not enough to rival richer neighbors, as the Tullys rely more on alliances and marriage ties than coin. The Ironborn of Pike are a different story, as their isles are barren and poor. Trade goods and natural resources include salted fish, timber, and tin. Their true wealth, though, was plunder. As Balon Greyjoy declared, "We do not sow." In steady years, Greyjoys earned maybe 200,000 dragons annually, about 600 million today. But a good season of reaving could bring home millions more. Their economy is as unstable as the sea itself. The Stormlands were tough, fertile in places, but battered by storms. Trade goods and natural resources include timber, fish, and amber. This implies that the Baratheons could have 400,000 dragons annually. So we can conclude that the Baratheons earn roughly 1.2 billion annually. At their height of their power, the Targaryens were unmatched, as the Targaryens earned more in tribute than trade, but Dragonstone exported dragon glass, and the Iron Throne under their rule taxed every port in the Seven Kingdoms. They likely commanded 10 million dragons annually at their peak. That's about 30 to 35 billion per year. In modern terms, these houses had fortunes on par with billionaires and even nations. But gold and wealth is not a victory unto itself. Gold can buy swords, ships, and castles, but it can't buy loyalty, dragons. Hi everyone, Blue here. First of all, thanks for watching. If you watched, like, comment, subscribe, you know what to do. That's all I got for now. See you later. Bye for now.